Jesus then goes on to say to them, "You are the light of the world, and a city built on a hill cannot be hidden, and no one after lighting a lamp puts it under a bushel basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all the house. And in the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." Okay, this passage has Isaiah 49 written all over it, and Isaiah 49 is the big promise that God will restore Israel, and then Israel will become a light to the nations, or a light to the Gentiles, and then they will all come to salvation. And that probably has a reference to Genesis 14, the big promise that in Abraham's family all of the nations will be blessed. Now, how did the Pharisees, the temple people, the religious elite, probably think that this promise was going to come to pass? Well, they thought of the restoration of Israel as a new Davidic kingdom, the first of all independent kingdom independent of Romans and of all the other nations that kept ruling it for the last many centuries. So a new big kingdom in which the law would be taught. We already said that the idea of salt and light is a reference to the law. So the way by which Israel would become the light to the nations is by Israel having the law, and then of course also teaching it. So the ones who knew the law and taught the law, i.e. the Pharisees and the doctors and these temple people in particular, they thought of themselves as being the fulfillment of that promise and being the light to the nations. We know that some rabbis even had nicknames called light to the nations. So it was a very present idea at the time of Jesus. They saw themselves by virtue of knowing and teaching the law as a light to the nations, and by Israel doing that, it would eventually lead to a world order that would be Israel centric, and thereby being the fulfillment of many of the promises of a new Davidic kingdom to which all the nations will come and obey and give gifts and so on. Now, what Jesus is now doing is he is reinterpreting that, and he's saying that the kingdom, the restoration of Israel, the kingdom that he spoke of in his Beatitudes, he said, "Yours is the kingdom of the world." The kingdom which he will later say is not of this world, not of this world, but it is for this world. This is something that many have pointed out, and it's very important to recognize that it is a kingdom that did not originate in this world, but it is definitely for this world. It is a kingdom that will transform this world. Now, that is the restoration of Israel, which will of course happen in and through Jesus himself. Now, that new idea, that concept of kingdom that Jesus had, is not going to come about through the learned and the ones who know and simply teach the law, but it will come through what we already called the expendables. Yeah, the kind of people that nobody thought would ever make any kind of difference. The poor, the broken-hearted, the meek, the mild, those who mourn, and so on. Those are the ones, by virtue of them and their good works, the kingdom will come, and that kingdom then, of course, we'll know later, will lead to the salvation of the whole world. So that is something that probably people did not anticipate in that way in Israel. They thought of an Israel-centric world order, but what we know through Paul and the rest of the Bible is that this eventually will lead to the salvation of the world and the gospel being spread all across. So this passage is really a reinterpretation, a redefinition of Isaiah 49. And let's just have lastly a quick look at the structure here, the train of thought that Jesus has. So he's saying you are the salt and then also the light of the world, and by that he means all of that. And he says a city built on a hill cannot be hidden, and no one after lighting a lamp puts it under a bushel basket. Now this city, he possibly had his own city in mind, Capernaum. which he later says, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? And I think that's a reference to the fact that Capernaum was really built on a very high hill. And thinking of that, he says, just like Capernaum or other cities built on hills cannot be hidden. And just like a lamp that is lighted will not be put under a bushel basket. A bushel basket is a measuring device. And of course, the idea here is most houses only had one big room, and so you would light one lamp or one candle in the middle, and once you lit it, you wouldn't necessarily put it under a basket. Why? Because that would extinguish the fire immediately. So you wouldn't do any of that. But instead you would put it up on the lampstand, and it will give light to all in the house. And so the comment I think he's making here is that a city by virtue of being a city cannot be hidden, or a lamp by virtue of being a lamp will give light to the whole house. And so these people that he's talking to, his disciples, who are the ones that nobody thought would ever make any difference to the world, the expendables and so on, he said, you, by virtue of being who you are, the poor in spirit and the brokenhearted and the mourning and the peacemakers and so on, by virtue of who you are, that's a reference to the good works here. By virtue of who you are, that's your good works. You will be a light to the world and let your light shine to others. Why is he saying that? I mean, why are we saying works refer to the being rather than the doing? Because in the next chapter, in chapter 6, Jesus makes two comments, and he says, when you pray, close your door and don't let anybody see it. Or when you give to the poor, don't let your right hand see what your left hand is doing. So Jesus is clearly not intending to say, do good and talk about it. So that is not at all what he has in mind. But that's why he's making this comment here. Your good works, what are your good works? Just like a city on a hill is just a city and cannot be hidden. By virtue of being built on a hill, it cannot be hidden. And again, so it is in the very being. And so he is saying the kingdom of God will come through those people, poor, meek, mild, and so on, that he talked about in the Beatitudes. By virtue of being who you are, you will be a light to the world and bring salvation to the world. So it is again a huge encouragement, and also it shows Jesus' redefinition of that ancient promise, Isaiah 49, the reference to Genesis 14, how Jesus thought all of these things will be fulfilled, first of all in him, and then secondly in his people that we called expendables here.